Welcome, everybody. We're just going to give folks 1 or 2 minutes to filter in here and get comfy, refill your coffee, and we'll be getting started here shortly. Thanks for joining us. In fact, I need more coffee myself, even though it's already noon. Okay, well, we're a couple minutes past the hour. You can see a couple more people are joining now, but we'll let people filter in. We've got some intros to do anyway. So thanks for joining us today for Great Lakes Islands Alliance webinar with Freshwater Future. We'll be talking about fundraising today. Welcome, everybody. If you don't know about Great Lakes Islands Alliance, which I think we might have a couple of new people on here, welcome if you're new to us. We are a network of islands in the Great Lakes with some very diverse focus areas. And today we are welcoming Freshwater Future out of Petoskey to do some education for us on fundraising. And I'm going to turn it over here in just a second to our coordinator, Matt Pricer, who is going to tell you a little bit more about GLIA and what we do. He's been with the group way longer than me, so he's the resident expert to tell you all about GLIA. So Matt, take it away.
Thanks, Philip. It's a kind way of saying I'm older than you as well. Much older, maybe not much.
Not that much.
So yeah, my name is Matt Pricer. I am lucky enough to serve as the GLIA coordinator. And am I coming across okay, sound-wise?
Yep, you sound great.
Great. Before I begin, and Philip, you might do this a little bit later, but as you're signing in, don't be afraid to use the chat.
Yeah.
I'd encourage you to drop a note in there, or even rename your profile with your island name or where you're coming from, or in the chat you can identify where you're coming from. We do have a lot of folks from Great Lakes Islands on the call today, plus some additional folks. GLIA is proud to be a fiscally sponsored project of an organization, a nonprofit called the Stewardship Network. And we extended this invitation to other folks in the Stewardship Network community family. So we're excited to have a few extra folks, including some from outside the Great Lakes, I believe. So with that, Great Lakes Islands Alliance. So GLIA is a voluntary collaborative multinational network that brings together island leaders, citizens, and advocates from across the region. Our mission statement is there on the screen, and you can see it's the gist of it is that we're about providing access to information, and we see the value of shared experiences. Certainly, living, working, playing on islands has a unique perspective, and we feel that there's value in connecting folks together. Our informal motto is "For Islands by Islands." Next slide. So here's a small map of where our people come from. So presently, GLIA has more than 250 individuals from 20 different island communities in the Great Lakes. So you'll see these are on both sides of the US-Canada border and in all 5 of the Great Lakes. And so again, while each and every island community is unique in terms of its size, its population, its character, its location, we found that islanders have many things in common and really would benefit from learning from one another. Next slide. So GLIA supports and promotes resilient, vibrant, sustainable island communities through a number of activities related to both environmental protection and growing our social and economic institutions. We see these going hand in hand in island communities, even more so than the mainland, because after all, islands are surrounded by water and they're literally defined by the Great Lakes. So what we do is we hold virtual information sharing meetings each month, plus an in-person island summit, which rotates to different islands. The photos you can see there are photos from our past island summits. We have done island summits on Beaver Island, Madeline Island, Mackinac Island, the Lake Erie Islands, Lake Cheneau, and northern Lake Huron, and then we're back on Beaver Island in September. So there'll be some websites and information at the end of the presentation today where you can learn a little bit more about GLIA and our island summit. Today's webinar is really an example of our efforts to connect islanders with leading subject matter experts and decision makers from around the region. And with that, I think that's my summary, and I'll turn it back to Philip for today's webinar.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. We're excited to be welcoming Anne and Leslie from Freshwater Future, who are almost my neighbors just down Petoskey. I'm in Mackinac Island. And they're going to teach us a little bit about fundraising today. And just a note, we will be doing a Q&A at the end. The last 15 minutes of the meeting is reserved for question and answer. So if you've got a totally burning question that you think you might forget, feel free to drop that in the chat during the presentation. But we also will let you, raise your hand, come off mute, or ask in the chat at the end. So with that, I'm going to let Leslie and Anne tell you more about their work and take over the presentation. Thanks for being with us today.
Great. Thanks so much, Philip and Matt. We are really excited to be with all of you, and it was fun to see all the different places on the registration list where everyone is coming from today, even folks from out west. That's great to see you're here. And I hope you're all having a great summer and enjoying the incredible waters around you. So we're going to talk a little bit about fundraising today and fundraising basics, and just kind of the key things that hopefully will help you build a foundation as you do some fundraising. So before we do that, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Freshwater Future and who we are. We've been around since 1996, so just about 30, I got 30 years for sure, really. And over that time, we've really been a catalyst for community action directed at safeguarding the waters of the Great Lakes region. We are committed to protecting our waters from source to tap. And we do that primarily by uplifting communities that are working to protect their water resources in their community. So that might be surface waters, it might be groundwater, it might be drinking water, it might be wetlands or shorelines. And the way we support communities and uplift them is we provide grant opportunities. Most of those grants are really for advocacy work. So really encouraging community organizations around the region to work on issues that hold polluters accountable, helping to enforce existing regulations, and even working on holding decision makers accountable and trying to get better regulations if necessary. So we've over the years, we've given away nearly 1,500 grants and almost $6 million in dollars. So quite a bit. If you're interested in learning more about those, feel free to talk to Leslie and I after the webinar. We can tell you a little bit more. In addition to that, we do a lot of capacity building. So kind of like today, how can we support those organizations with making sure that they stick around? Because we can't protect all of the resources in this vast region without community organizations and groups like yours. We need you to be working in your communities to protect those resources. So how can we support those organizations to make sure they're meeting legal requirements? They can do fundraising, they know how to do communications, have a database. So kind of the core elements of how to be a good nonprofit. In addition to that, we also do a lot of networking, bringing groups together. We have a Great Lakes network where it's groups voluntarily get together to work on topic areas together. They meet regularly. It might be just sharing information. It might be working on a specific project. And if you want to know more about that, let us know too. That meets monthly. But the sub networks on different topics meet as well monthly. And then we also work on issues. So right now, we're very engaged in a variety of issues. There's a lot happening in the States. If we have anyone from Canada, you know that. But we also are working on trying to get some affordable water legislation passed in Michigan so that everybody can afford their drinking water bill, just as an example. So that's kind of a very quick overview of who we are, and you can ask us questions later. So actually, this is where we want to hear from you. So you can either unmute or use the chat, whatever is preferable. But we'd like to know a little bit more about your fundraising experience. How many of you did fundraising last year? Um, and I'm trying to see, I have it on gallery right now, but trying to look to see if I can see if anyone has their hands up. Anyone do fundraising last year? Or take yourself off mute and say yes?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. And was it successful?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Okay. Yep, that's fair. Any failures? You don't have to admit it if you're uncomfortable saying so. Okay, that's all right. We'd also like to know what your biggest fear about fundraising may be.
Getting turned down for that one grant that you thought was going to fund your entire budget.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That keeps me up at night.
Fear of rejection. Yeah, it is real. Okay. Anyone else brave enough to share their fears? Yeah. I mean, I think I'm always a little afraid of the no, right? Especially if you're asking a major donor that they're just going to say no. Okay. Well, you can always share some of these later if they come on. Then it's also, what do you want to learn about fundraising today? I mean, Leslie and I have kind of a set agenda, but at the same time, if there are specific things you want to know about, we'll do our best to try to make sure we can cover those. If we don't have them in the presentation already, we'll try to make sure we cover them after. Okay, so personally against spending a lot of money on food, drinks, decorations, expenses, ask for money for dark sky preservation. Ah, okay. Yep. All right. Anything else people want to learn about? Anything specific folks have in mind? How an organization can fundraise when they don't necessarily have a fundraising expert on staff. Well, hopefully we will give you that today. Sounds like there's some good things that happened with the dark sky. I look forward to learning more about that. Okay, great. And no fundraising staff. Okay. How to effectively engage with sponsors. Okay. Oh, you have a ton to offer as far as benefits. We'll try to cover that too. Okay. Not oversaturating our small community with too many asks. Yeah. Okay. We understand that. We're always working in rural environments too, and it's small communities, so we get that. Okay. You can keep adding them, and we'll try to come back to those, and I'll try to make a little checklist to see if we can get through all of those before we're done today. Broadband funding. Oh, okay. Not sure I have the background on that, but we might have some ideas. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, I'm going to keep going so we have enough time to get through everything. One of the important places I like to start is really kind of understanding, where that money comes from when it gets donated. So you kind of have that base understanding of the amount of money that's donated to nonprofits and charities. So these are United States statistics. If we do have folks from Canada, let me know. I can maybe try to fit some in, or I can talk to you later about some of those numbers. They're a little different. But in the US in 2023, so I don't have 2024 yet. I'm trying to get that report. But people donated 500 or 557 billion in total was donated to charities. And as you can see from the pie chart, that the majority of that money, over 67%, came from individuals, right? So it's people like you and I and everyone on this call that are contributing that biggest chunk to charities. Foundations came in second with about 103 billion, but they're still less than 20% when we look at how much money is given to nonprofits. Bequests came in next with 43 billion. That's, pretty amazing when you consider that, these are people who are just leaving gifts and wills. And then corporations came in at 6.6% or 36 billion. This chart does not include a couple other sources of revenue that nonprofits often rely on, and that might be selling goods and services, especially those that may be related to your mission, which you can directly use, or any kind of earned income or fees for service. So it doesn't include that, just for clarity's sake. So who gets the money, right? Where does that money go? And in the US, the majority of it is going to places of worship. That is where people are very experienced and conditioned to give, right? It's very incorporated into the culture of, if you are a member of a place of worship, that you give a certain amount on a regular basis. But then after that, people give to their education. It might be their alma mater, it might be their community school. They give to human services. They give to foundations like community foundations. That's often a very popular and getting to be more popular in our region in particular. And then after that, you have health and public society. And so those, a lot of these categories are probably categories you want to fund projects for on your islands, right? So, for us, we're always looking at that environment piece, because that's usually where we're going after the money, is from that environment. Every now and then we're trying to crack into some of those public health funders, but they've been a little harder for us. But at the same time, with 3.5% just going to environmental organizations, that's still over $16 billion. So it still is a lot of money. There's a lot of money out there that's being donated. So I like to show this in the sense of, there's not really a shortage of money. It is figuring out how to access it and how to get it. Now, there are some advantages and disadvantages, or pros and cons, or just differences in money, right? And in particular, one of the things we like to share is talking about kind of the reliability of money as well as the flexibility of money. So the reliability, of course, is this y-axis. So the higher up you go on that y-axis, the more reliable that money is. And the flexibility is the further you go on that x-axis, the greater the flexibility is. So, so higher numbers are more reliable and more flexible. So government, as you can see, is at the lowest number, right? It's the least reliable. We see that right now in the US. It is the least flexible. It is the hardest to access, the requirements, the contracting. It's it's very burdensome. It can be. Now, state governments can be a little better than federal governments, but you're still going to have a much higher amount of rules and restrictions of how you can use that money. So foundations, you can see there's a little bit more flexibility, right? But even in foundations, they have, they only fund in their certain program areas, and then they have very strict ideas of what they will fund and they won't fund. And their reliability is better than governments, but they are also have a tendency to be fickle. So they might get a new president of the foundation, and then they want to do a planning process, and then that planning process may come out with different priorities. So there is always some change often going on in the foundation world. Corporations, they're a little bit more flexible, probably a little bit less reliable because they're depending on the market, right? So if the market isn't so good, then they're just not going to have the funds available for them to do the kind of giving that they want. Corporations are also very transactional. They want something specifically in return, right? The government and the foundation, they want something in return too, but it's more in line usually with your mission and what you're trying to accomplish. Where a corporation, they're going to probably want something about the people that you connect with, right? They're trying to connect to your audience usually, and be able to show that they're a supporter of you. So then, of course, we come to donors. So you can see they're way up on the reliability scale. And they're also a lot more flexible. When you do fundraising with individuals, you can, when you do your asks, if you do them right, you can have a very good storytelling about a certain issue you're working on. But then in your letter, you can also make sure that you say something, your donation will be used for our other programs as well, right? It gives you that flexibility that you can use it for whatever you need to. And people are used to giving. So they get into habits. Just like at their places of worship, they get into habits with the organizations they support, and they're very reliable. Bequests, on the other hand, can be a little bit more flexible than donors even, because sometimes you just get a big chunk of money and you do whatever you want with it. But of course, they're not reliable, because the only way you're going to get those is if you build relationships with people and you ask them to leave something to your organization in the will. So you have to be very deliberate about it to get those kind of gifts. There's other kind of pros and cons that aren't on this list. And I realize that, like with donors, you can't always get the big gifts that you might need that you're going to get from a government or a foundation, right? If you need to fund staff and you need tens of thousands of dollars, then, you're going to need to have some of those larger grants until you can build some of your donor relations up to a point where you could actually get maybe some of those bigger grants. So, mixture is usually what most organizations are striving towards. We're still really heavy on foundations as well. But our donors and the gifts that we get from them really allow us to do a lot more. That flexibility is huge. Okay, so why do people give to charities? The whole definition is it's a love of philanthropy is a love of humanity, right? And generosity in all of its forms, whether it's time, talent, or treasure, it really is an important part of our lives. It helps make our communities better and our lives better. And I'm sure most of you have heard of this before, but research has been able to prove that when people donate to an organization or a cause they believe in, they don't own the most obvious benefit that they gain from that is they feel better, right? They feel good. They feel good about that gift. But it actually has very tangible benefits. It can reduce stress, it can reduce depression, so it can have proven mental health benefits, and it can have proven physical health benefits as well. So I say that because even if we have some donor fatigue out there, which we can talk a little bit more about, asking people to donate is you are really giving them a gift. You are giving them the opportunity to be a part of the incredible work that you're doing in your community and to be a part of that solution and a part of that effort. And for most people, they might be a nurse or they might be a teacher or they might have another job in the community. They might clean homes, whatever it might be, but they want to be a part of that. But the only way they can do that is by giving a donation. So, you know, just remembering that, by asking people to give, you're doing them a favor. And so it's that shift in thinking about fundraising as really an opportunity and a gift. So before we go to the next slide, though, I don't know if anyone wants to share in the chat, like, why do you give to organizations that you support? Because my guess would be most of you are donating too. And is there some reason of why you give? Okay, I'll let folks go ahead and just put those in as we move on to the next one. And I'm going to actually pass it over to Leslie at this point. So, Leslie, I'll let you take it from here.
Oh, thanks, Anne. Such great information and such a great overview of the big picture of fundraising. So now we're going to move into the nitty gritty. And I've been looking at the comments in the chat. And so I've got obviously prepared slides, but as I walk through them really quick, I'm going to try to gear them a little bit to what folks are asking and what their concerns and expectations are. So number one is, do you have a fundraising plan as you're thinking about fundraising? And it doesn't have to be some huge, long, big document of many, many pages, but just a real concise, essential piece that you need to have that lists out your case statement. So, why do you need the funds? And why would your donors want to give? Why do you need the funds? Are you having a special project? Do you need general support? Are you having a capital campaign? Um, and then why would donors want to give to that? Is it something that they'll benefit from? I mean, is it a community center? Well, they're going to receive benefits as well as their care of community and the community benefits. Is it building your capacity with another staff member? That would benefit the donor themselves, or again, they see it as benefiting your community in general. So you want to list those out. And I saw in the chat that a lot of you had concerns that you don't have a staff member. It's tough, but with what limited capacity you have, having that case statement can really help you because it gives you some key messages to work with. And one, you can give those key messages to your board members and maybe other volunteers that are helping you fundraise. And it really gives them an elevator pitch. Then you can take those key messages and you put them into your direct mail letter that you might send out. You can put them into your email that you send out. You can change it up and have it be more of a friendly blurb and put that in your Facebook post. And it all flows together and it really does, one, hone in on your message. And that repetition is great for spreading your fundraising message, but also makes it a heck of a lot easier to have all those pieces. So just that's something to keep in mind is when you create that case statement, then you can plug it into all those different components and save yourself a lot of time. And then the other key component of that fundraising plan is the budget. And I saw an interesting comment about a gala event. And I'm trying to see who had that really quickly. Was it Cynthia? You ended up spending a lot of money on food, drinks, decorations, and probably a lot of other money and so much time. And gala events can be great, but let's say your goal is 50,000 and you end up spending, 20,000 on the food and the entertainment and the invitations. They take an incredible amount of time and a lot of money. So then your 50,000 goal kind of ends up being maybe 20 or 30,000. And so it can kind of be exasperating that you spent all this time and didn't quite reach your goal. But on the other hand, you probably did bring your organization to a broader community. You know, had a lot of great promotion around it. I'm sure probably met some individuals personally. So hopefully, you know, you gained more than just your fundraising goal, but made a lot of friends too. So you could kind of work off of that maybe in the future. So totally get that. Stop. So anyway, with your fundraising campaign that you're going to be doing, you need that goal of your budget, and then do be realistic about your expenses. Besides a in-person event like a gala or an auction, you might have mailing costs. So how much are those stamps going to be? How much is the paper going to cost? And just be realistic, and then adjust your fundraising goal to cover those expenses. And then you really need to hone in on who your potential donors are. You know, who are you going to target with these fundraising efforts? Is it your current donors and members? Is it friends of your board members that you think might be interested in? Is it a whole new audience? Is there a geographic location that you're going to focus on? And then think of the demographics of your audience. And I think this is really important. And again, it can help you save some time and money. So those demographics, you know, you want to kind of create a persona of who your donor might be. You know, what age are they? Do they prefer social media like Facebook, or are they email people? Um, do they like to attend events? Maybe they go, your potential donor attends farmer markets. So maybe that might be one of your uh, events that you do is you table at a farmer's market and you hand out appeal cards and talk to people. So the more you know about that persona, the better you can target. And again, I think it is saving that capacity in terms of time and money. And then always, just a reminder before you ask, you need to apply for your license to solicit, and your charity status are important. So if you haven't worked through that as an organization, if you're not already a 501c3, you won't be able to, you know, have folks take that tax deduction, and you may have to pay taxes on those donations. You can accept them, but there's different legalities with that. Next slide, Anne. Thanks. There we go. So how to ask for donations from individuals. You need to reach out where your donors are. And again, it goes to those specific audience that you've kind of created. Where are they? What are they doing? I mean, are they on social media? Are they reading emails? Do you have their mailing addresses? And so that kind of will reflect on your campaign. But one thing is for certain is a multi-channel approach is the best strategy. And multi-channel just means the way you are communicating. So we always recommend trying to do all of the above. And again, you know, if you have that case statement, you're going to use that same information and just hone that message to the particular channel. So there's direct mail, which is simply snail mail, the good old traditional way, and it still works, especially like for us, and I imagine with the Islands Alliance, it's the same, is an older kind of audience rather than, you know, a younger generation, and they still read their mail, and that's still how they give as well. In-person events and meetings, but those take time and some capacity, but they can also maybe be cost effective too. It just depends on, again, who your demographic is. Email with an online form. You can just send an email out and say, you know, mail back a check to us, which is fine, but you really want to have an online giving donation page. That is how people are giving more and more. That's how most of us probably give, I imagine, is online. So you really want to have that online form. So the email just says click here and they can give, and it's super convenient and quick and easy for them. And then social media. Social media is a wonderful place to market and highlight your fundraising efforts. We, as an organization, don't use the fundraising what I want to say, platform on, for instance, Facebook, where they have their own platform where people donate through them, and then you get sent the money. We prefer to have the more direct connection to us. So we'll highlight one of our fundraising campaigns, and then the click to goes to our page. Um, we've had some good success. Usually it's with a very specific campaign with a very short timeline. And so, for instance, over to the right on this slide, you see giving times of the year. Our Giving Tuesday, which is a social engagement day for folks globally, and billions of dollars are donated on that day. That's a great social media campaign. But if it's more of a general support ask, social media might not be quite as good of an avenue for you. And then there's also online fundraisers. And these are all very good ways to have a connection with your volunteers and board members with their groups of networks. And it's called peer-to-peer fundraising, or P2P. And they're online platforms. You can do it in person with cash or checks, but it's really all online nowadays. And we'll show some slides of those. But it's where people create either personal pages or team pages, and they highlight the organization and your case statement, what you're asking for. And then they just send an email out to their friends and family and networks saying, I hope you can support me in my efforts with this cause. And sometimes it includes a fun activity to kind of raise awareness for your fundraising ask. And it generates maybe not as much per donation amount, but a little bit can add up to a lot the broader your network is. And it's a really easy way to have other people ask on behalf of your organization. And again, we'll show you some forms and some platforms that you might want to try. That could help you a lot, especially with the Islands Alliance. Again, focus is summertime. Everybody, I imagine most people probably leave for the winter time. It might be a great winter strategy for you when you're not seeing people in person, and you're able to really expand that network for the campaign. And then, oh, key times to ask. So year end is really the best time of year to ask. That's when most people give their money, as it's a top of mind at both the holiday giving season and also year end, as they, are thinking about, their income and tax situation. Giving Tuesday, again, is a great day to ask because it's top of mind for people. It's the second Tuesday in December, or no, I'm sorry, the first Tuesday in December. And it's a global day of giving and volunteering. And it would be great to do a social media campaign, maybe an email. I wouldn't suggest general mail. It probably wouldn't land, timing wise. But that's a great day to think about promotion. And it's relatively easy. If you go to the Giving Tuesday org page, they have all the logos and campaign banners and even some text to use. So it makes it really easy for you. Other dates to consider are dates associated with your cause. If you think of Freshwater Future, Earth Day or World Water Day is a great day for us because, again, our audience, it's top of mind as a day of celebrating and caring. And then, of course, anytime. There are some best months, but sometimes if you think of when other groups are asking, maybe it's better ask when they aren't. So there really isn't a bad time, but it's a great anytime, I always say. So next slide, Anne. Okay, so here we're getting into the druthers of what things look like. This is a direct mail letter with reply card. You will, I think Philip and Matt will have the PDF available afterwards.
Yep.
So you can zoom in and really read. I can barely read this without some glasses. But anyway, here is a letter, and a basic letter. And there really is a formula to a good letter. And experts forever have kind of honed in on to these details that really work. So with a direct mail, you need to discuss your need, problem, and how your potential donor and your reader of the letter can help. how can they help you? That's really important to them to give. Tell a bit of a story, share just a bit about your mission and impact, but don't go overboard on who you are. You want it to be about them. And then the call to action, and repeat that throughout the letter. And because some people don't read a full letter, they just skim, it's important to kind of have that, again, call to action throughout the letter. But there is, like I said, a formula to a good letter. So feel free to take some language from this when you see the PDF, and you may find it helpful. My biggie is the reply card. I promote everybody has to have a reply card, remittance form, an appeal card, whatever you want to call it. And these days, if you have an online donation page, put that QR code front and back and everywhere, and also include it on your letter, because again, online donating is really where everybody's kind of going. I mean, we still get a ton of checks, as everybody does, but more and more, it's all through, online credit card processing. You want to have suggested amounts on that reply card, a space where they can put in their address information. If you are planning on doing keeping emails and having subscribers in an email campaign, make sure you grab that email. Phone, you might have a phone tree or some kind of way to connect with them more personally, and also to thank them after they give a donation. Just give them a phone call. So it's important to ask for that information. And I think it's important to have this with your direct mail letter going out, but also if you do go to any events, if you do go table at a farmer's market or attend a Rotary meeting to talk about your organization, have these to hand out. It's one thing to say, hey, we're a great organization. We'd love you to donate to us. Thank you so much. And then walk away. It kind of leaves it up in the air. But if you have something as a leave behind, it makes such a difference. Next slide, Anne, thanks. Okay, this is what an online donation form goes. This is a sponsored group of Freshwater Future. It's Water's Life Festival, and I just want to do, key components of what an online donation form would look like. Again, just remember with your contribution amounts listed, gear those again towards that audience that you developed in your case statement. Maybe your audience is more the 20, 50, 75, 100, or maybe your audience is more, 50, 150, 200, 500. You really want to gear it towards them. And then as you develop more of a renewal program with your donors, and if they're members, you'll have a better feel for it. And you can actually, some of these programs will gear that donation to what they gave last time. So just pay attention to that. And again, that case statement, that's going to be included just in a brief statement. You've already got that done, so that won't be a problem at all. A great photo with people is really wonderful. Just a note on online donation platforms. Freshwater Future does use Bonterra, every action. It's wonderful and big and robust, but complicated. And a lot of folks that don't have staff, it's a little too much program, and a little time consuming. But there are some great programs out there, ones that I've used and I'll use sometimes for other campaigns than what we generally do. And so I can personally recommend Give Lively and Give Butter. They have both free and paid options, and they're relatively simple to set up and to use. I don't think you need to be a database technician to really understand them at all. So those are two that I can recommend. Do note that you'll have to do a Stripe or PayPal type of account to accept credit cards, and that there is the credit card fee of 2 to 3%. Sometimes you can pass that on to the donor if they wish to add that on to their donation, but you don't want to expect that. So you do need to count that into your expenses. And again, that goes back to your budget general. That would be one of your expenses. So just keep that in mind. But again, if you're looking for an online platform to accept donations online, I would totally recommend Give Lively or Give Butter. Yeah, go ahead, Anne. And I'm going to just quickly go through these rest so we have time for questions. So the online donation option, one thing I will point out, what's most effective is that button right hand upper corner. Don't put it anywhere else because people will go to your website and they will search for it and they'll get frustrated. I don't think they accept donations. I can't find that button, and they'll just leave. That is where people expect it to be, and you want it prominent and centered there. So don't have some website design person say, "Oh, it looks so cool over here," in this weird shape. It needs to be in the right upper corner to be effective, truly. And next slide. Thanks, Anne. And this is what an email campaign with an online donation form looks like for a year-end ask. And the only reason I show this is think about, again, that case statement. You're taking your long form and developing a letter, and then you're taking a bit of the shorter text and making it on the donation page. So it doesn't have to, again, be all these, major design pieces and all these different appeals. It's just taking your main statement, making it a nice letter, and then taking parts of that and building it out into your online forms and your email asks, and try to keep that branding the same. Again, if you don't have staff to do it, there's Canva, which is a great program for design options, and there's a free version as well, and it's really easy to use, and you can create some nice banners with your logo and some text in there, and make them seasonal if you wish. But anyway, just keep your branding for that specific campaign in mind when you do these, so that people have that repetition. It takes more than sometimes one time to ask, but also from campaign to campaign, they get a feel for what you're asking. Next slide. I'm trying to hurry through these. I apologize. This is what a social media campaign looks like. This is another Giving Tuesday. Again, I had mentioned that this is a great way to fundraise online. And you can see we have some great Giving Tuesday email blurb. And it really focuses on very simple message of giving to Freshwater Future and giving on Tuesday in celebration. You can see we've got our image. Somehow connection with people is always great. So if it's not a person, it's a hand with water. Obviously, that works for Freshwater Future. But anyway, it's definitely something to try if you have a social media account. I think Facebook and Instagram are probably the best for Giving Tuesday, but you could try LinkedIn as well. And then Blue Sky, we've started to use. I don't know, I haven't had any stats on fundraising success with that as well, though. But if you do have a good Facebook audience, then or Instagram, I would definitely suggest incorporating your campaign. And then the next slide here. And here's what the peer-to-peer fundraising campaign. So I think Give Butter has an option for the peer-to-peer. We have used Give Lively, and the setup is pretty simple. And this is a Give Lively. This is our walk, paddle, and roll. We do it pretty much every year, and we develop teams. So we have staff teams, and we also have board teams, and we also help other organizations and allow them to use our platform for the walk, paddle, and roll, because it just is great, fun kind of summer event. And we do an activity. So like this is Jill, our executive director in the photo, and she is canoeing. And that was her ways to raise awareness. And then through these teams, we have the individual fundraisers, and it's kind of a nice kind of competition feel that some folks like to have that as a motivation to raise more funds. And you can see it has leaderboards and lists other fundraisers. So anyway, pretty easy to set up. And if you go to the next page, and I just wanted to show you the back end. Again, this is Give Lively. You can see on the left, there's campaign pages, text to donate, all this great stuff. Really easy to use. Again, you don't have to be a technical expert, I think, to get through it. But you do have to have your basic information, your case statement, for your donation amount and impact stories, logos, images, and some other custom questions. And I would say it would take you a half hour to set up or so. And next slide, Ann. And then just a quick reminder, old school fundraising still works. We've talked a lot about online strategies, and of course, I think those are paramount and so important if you're going to get into individual fundraising or expand on what you're already doing. But don't forget the old school. So phone calls, handing out donation cards, standing up in meetings, not even at your own, obviously, but even, third-party meetings that you go to. Bake sales, potlucks, and silent auctions are all great ways in person. Don't forget to ask your family and friends. It doesn't have to be a hard sell or be pushy. Just, I love this organization. I think you'd be interested in it. I think you would really like to be involved. Would you like, to donate? Um, and if they say no, not a big deal. You don't have to have your feelings hurt or feel uncomfortable. You just won't, ask them again. No big deal. And then all these different ways, and even the online ways, remember you're building a list. So not only is it the fundraising campaign you're working on today, but it's also your future campaigns. So make sure that you're collecting that information. And we've got 10 minutes, so I'll try to hurry through the rest. I'm so sorry. And go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So we won't talk about this. It'll be in the PDF. But these are just some record keeping tips. Always thank. You have to thank 250 or more. If somebody gives you, you have to send them a physical acknowledgement. We thank everybody. We've thanked people that have mailed in $1, and we've had several people do that, and they get the mailed letter thank you just as anybody would, because we are thankful, and it's a nice touch point without having an ask be the only touch point for those folks. So don't forget. And then there's some other, again, record keeping highlights in this slide as well. And so, Anne, can you go to the next? And this is just if you don't have a database program for keeping your records and donor information, just a simple Excel sheet works fine, but please keep track of. You'll need to do it for any potential audit that you might have in the future, and obviously for your financial records, but also it really helps maintain your list for donors and for your future needs. So it can be very simple, just name, address, email, and then some notes is always helpful. And then you can also keep the donation amounts as well. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I think we're about there. And then these are tips. So I'll just run through these really quick. So tips, multi-channel works best. And that means, have your campaign, direct mail, follow it with an email, and highlight on social media, talk about it if you go to events. Always send those thank yous. Use your database. Don't always have the only communication with folks be a fundraising ask. You want to follow it up with news, newsletters, thanks. Send them, oh, I thought you might be interested in this article that I read in this news. I mean, there's so many different ways, but just remember to keep and maintain a strong connection other than fundraising. Repetition is key. Usually one ask isn't enough. It's going to be two to four. So you need to remember that you need to follow up after you send out the one. Personalize as much as you're able. People want to be asked by people, and they want to feel that personal touch and connection with people. So people to people. Email subject lines matter. Don't wind up in people's spam and junk with promotional words. That's a biggie. That's something that a lot of people don't think about. So just be wise about what subject line you use, but also make it kind of jazzy and interesting too. So it does matter. Think about a monthly giving option. That might be appeal to your audience. Instead of somebody giving a $40 donation, if they gave $5 a month, that's a $60 donation. So it's almost double. So something to consider. And these online platforms do have the ability to calculate that all for you automatically. Again, QR code, have it. If you have an online presence, put it on everything. Make stickers. And then know where your audience is most likely to give. Again, we'll go back to if your audience is a direct mail audience, focus on that. If your audience is purely through social media, focus on that, especially with the capacity of not having any staff. Focusing on where your audience is paramount. Okay, that was a lot. So, do we address questions? Do you want me to run through these, see if people have questions?
Yeah, let's open the floor. I know there's actually Matt had one that I'm curious about too in the chat already here. What do you think about platforms like GoFundMe that are third party? Do you think it's better to go through your own website, your own platform, or do you think that the familiarity people have with like GoFundMe or Kickstarter is what do you think about it?
They're easy, but I would say as long as you take an hour or so to set up something like on GiveButt or Give Lively, you're way further ahead. You have more control. You have the direct connection with that donor, where these third party GoFundMe, I think that you don't have a direct connection. You know, their connection is, oh, I'm giving to a GoFundMe
Mm-hmm.
Fundraiser, right? Or fund. Whereas when they go to one of these other platforms, they're giving to the Great Lakes Islands Alliance,
Directly.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I think for branding wise, I think definitely security wise, I think, directly to you. And again, the GoFundMe, I don't know what information they even send you as the receipt. You know what I mean? So take the time, I think, to do one of those. And it doesn't have, I'm not like being paid by Give Butter or Give Lively to recommend them. They're just ones I've used, and I think that they work pretty well. But there's some others. And then there's some others that are not as big as the one I was talking about, the Bonterra Every Action one, but there are some other paid for ones that are easier to use, probably. Um,
One in the chat here. Do you have a recommendation for a best way to reach out to donors who maybe haven't given in a few years? Is there a best practice there? How often should you do that? Is it worthwhile?
yeah, this is one thing we didn't have in here, but is a renewal program. You don't want to just ask once. We will go back into our records for giving. And we will, not every time we send out a renewal, we send out a renewal 3 times a year. So people get more than one ask. Only rarely does somebody say, oh, you know, don't ask me again, or, you just asked. Most people, I mean, they're so great. People are so gracious, um, that I wouldn't worry about sending it out a few times a year, but we do go back in our database, once a year, once every other year, and we'll even pull back to 5, 6 years. And you'd be surprised. I mean, there'll be some people that haven't given since 2018, and it's because you don't know what their life situation was over the last few years. There's the whole COVID thing. They might have had illness in their family, and your organization was the last thing on their mind. They love you, but it just wasn't a good time. And so by asking again until they actually say to you, please do not send me mail, don't assume that they're bothered by that mail. Does that make sense? I think we do
Mm-hmm.
that too much. Like, and I know that's been a question of bothering folks with too many appeals and that they get so many requests. Um, until they actually say something to you, again, I don't know that they're necessarily bothered to the point where they're turned off.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I think to remember.
Yeah,
And the other thing is too is um, because the summer months are so busy, it might be a wonderful time as year end for folks. And
mm-hmm.
to gear up now for the year end, just because, again, generosity is on top of mind at year end, but it's also kind of out of season, out of the busy season, that they might have more time to think about it.
Another related question Matt asked earlier. When you're doing email campaigns, I know you said 2 to 4 times per campaign. Do you change the message each time, or are you sending the same email 4 times?
A lot of times it's the same email, especially if you don't have a lot of capacity to go in and change it up. Change the subject line.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know, that is usually a trigger for them opening it.
Mhm.
I would say actually, no, I don't know that I would change it. If I think it's a good email and the response is good from folks, that might be the judge. Just look at your data. You know, if people are responding to it, then why change it up? Just change that subject line. Like, oh, don't forget, time is running out. You know, campaign ends at midnight. We really need you, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, that's what I would do. I wouldn't take the time to necessarily change out the language if I was good with it.
Matt, did you have something else? You've got your hand up.
Yeah, well, I wanted to, our hour is up, and so I wanted to
I'm sorry.
respect everyone's time.
Great.
This is such a rich subject. I wanted to thank Anne and our speakers here. Just off the cuff, I'm wondering if I think I'd love to have more time for the Q&A and the tips. And I haven't really run this by Philip yet, or our steering committee, or our guests, but this seems to me to call for a follow-up or a part two. And I don't know if that's another webinar, or perhaps a Q&A, or something that we maybe take more of these questions, these specific questions, by writing and have that ahead of time. And then we can really spend an hour doing that. Maybe we do it over the winter, at a different time of year when islands are more available. So I don't know. I drop it in the chat if you agree, if you want to continue the conversation. I'm curious if there are folks out there, but I suspect this could be an ongoing thing. So I guess with that, we will close. And again, we're past the hour, so I want to respect your time. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks, Philip, for emceeing.
Yeah, and just a note to, most of you won't need to view the recording because you're here, but if you talk to people, you want other people to see this that weren't able to attend, we did record it. We'll have it on our website in a few days. So check back gliaalliance.org and you'll be able to see the recording. Well, thanks, Anne and Leslie, and thanks everybody for attending, and we'll hope to see you at the next one.
Thank you.
Bye.